The city lights of Manhattan were still glowing when Logan Reed stepped out of the Plaza Hotel, the collar of his tailored coat turned up against the early morning chill. He smelled of champagne and Sabrina's perfume, a sweet, dangerous scent that still clung to his skin. For a brief moment, he felt invincible. The deal he had just secured, the woman on his arm, the luxury suite they fed the illusion that nothing in his life could fall apart. Not tonight. He unlocked his Mercedes S-Class, slid behind the wheel, and started the engine. His iPhone lit up with a dozen missed calls, but he didn't bother checking. He assumed it was Madison worrying again. Pregnant women always worried, he told himself. And he was tired of being the husband who had to reassure her. By the time he reached their Upper West Side apartment, the sun was rising, casting a pale gold light through the glass lobby. He took the private elevator up, expecting Madison to burst into tears or demand an explanation for why he hadn't come home. He rehearsed excuses, half-truths, and the classic line, "It was a work dinner. You're overreacting again." But the apartment was silent. Too silent. He walked into the kitchen, loosening his tie, annoyed already until he saw something that made his pulse jolt. There, on the marble counter, lay Madison's Cartier diamond earrings. The earrings he had given her on their second anniversary. The earrings she never removed, not even when she slept. Next to them was a single, folded note, written in her steady, graceful handwriting. For a second, the room warped. Time stretched thin. His throat tightened, something raw pushing up from a place he had spent years ignoring. He reached for the note, and that was when he noticed something else. Madison's suitcase was gone. Her coat was missing from the rack. Her pair of soft leather flats she wore to doctor appointments, gone. The refrigerator door stood ajar. Inside, the prenatal vitamins were missing. So was the sonogram picture she kept taped to a glass jar. The reality slammed into him harder than any Wall Street crash. Madison didn't leave out of anger. She left with intention. With finality, with knowledge. His fingers trembled as he opened the letter, the edges biting into his skin. Every breath felt sharp, shallow. He expected rage, accusations, tears. But what he read instead made his stomach drop, because it was quiet, calm, too calm for a woman 5 months pregnant. It was the kind of calm that comes when someone finally breaks in silence. And the last line was a knife to the bone. "I hope she was worth what you're about to lose." Before he could process the words, he noticed something else, something he had missed at first. Madison had left her wedding ring on the floor near the bedroom door. A sudden, suffocating dread swallowed him whole. Because if Madison walked away this completely, then she knew everything. And if she knew everything, someone must have shown her. Someone who wanted him destroyed. Someone already moving against him. He didn't know who, but he was about to find out. And when he did, nothing in his life would survive it. The moment Logan finished reading Madison's note, the apartment seemed to shift around him. The space that once felt warm, filled with her soft blankets, half-finished sketches, and the scent of lavender now felt like a staged museum exhibit. Too perfect, too empty, too final. He walked deeper into the living room, his footsteps echoing with a hollowness that hadn't been there before. Madison's favorite mug, the chipped white one she refused to throw away, wasn't on the coffee table. The throw blanket she always curled under during cold Manhattan nights was gone. Even her small collection of design books, the ones she used for her interior architecture projects, had vanished from the shelf. Logan's pulses hammered. Madison never left things unfinished. And she never left without telling him where she was going. Unless she'd stopped feeling like she owed him anything. He moved toward the hallway, the hardwood floor cold beneath his shoes. The bedroom door was slightly open, as if she didn't bother to close it behind her. Or maybe she wanted him to see the truth of what she'd taken, and what she'd left behind. He pushed the door open. The room looked stripped, like someone had moved out overnight. The closet door hung open, revealing empty hangers and a few scattered dresses she no longer wore. The drawer where she kept her soft maternity shirts was half open, every neatly folded piece missing. But the silence was what pierced him, heavy, accusing. It made the walls feel too close, the air too thin. Near the window, he noticed a detail that turned his stomach. Her prenatal appointment schedule, usually pinned on a corkboard, lay torn in half on the floor. And the sonogram image, the tiny outline of their child, had been taken. He swallowed hard. That picture was everything to her. She stared at it every night before bed, whispering promises she thought he couldn't hear. But he had heard. He just never cared enough to answer. He stepped back, suddenly dizzy, gripping the edge of the dresser. Where would she go? Who would she call? She had no family in New York, no close friends. He'd made sure of that, always reminding her that outsiders complicate things. But someone helped her. Someone gave her the courage to walk away. A bitter fear crawled up his spine as he stared at the barren room. For the first time, he felt something he wasn't used to feeling: powerless. And that was when he noticed the final blow. On the nightstand sat the Mont Blanc pen he gave her on their first Christmas together. She used it for everything: work sketches, grocery lists, love notes. She left it behind. A symbol. A message. Madison wasn't coming back. And whoever helped her disappear wasn't finished. The morning after Madison left, Logan sat at the edge of their bed, staring at the hollow imprint her body once made beside him. For years, he told himself, their marriage was stable, functional, good enough. He never cared to wonder whether she felt the same. Now, the quietness pressing around him forced memories to surface, memories he'd buried beneath work schedules, lies, and the thrill of someone like Sabrina. He remembered the first moment Madison hinted something was wrong. It was a late November night, cold wind rattling the windows. She had been sitting at the dining table with her MacBook Air open, hands shaking as she tried to finish a design project. When he walked in, smelling faintly of an unfamiliar perfume, she didn't ask where he'd been. She just looked at him with tired eyes and said, "I can't do this alone anymore, Logan." He told her she was being dramatic. Then there was the night she showed him their baby's first strong heartbeat on an ultrasound video. She held her phone up, smiling nervously. "I thought you'd want to see it," she whispered. He watched for 2 seconds before his phone buzzed with a message from Sabrina, and he turned away. "Work emergency," he said. Madison nodded as if she believed him. But her eyes had dimmed. Now, those cracks he ignored spread wide and undeniable in his memory. Every moment she tried to connect, every time he pushed her away, every soft plea, every quiet surrender. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration burning under his skin. She wouldn't just leave, he muttered to himself. Someone got to her. Someone's manipulating her. He couldn't accept the truth that he was the reason. He stood up abruptly, pacing the room. His mind raced through names: coworkers, acquaintances, neighbors. Who would Madison trust enough to run to? She was private, cautious. She didn't open up easily. And she had no family in New York. Unless... Logan froze as a name crept into his thoughts. Unwelcome and sharp: Ethan Marshall. Ethan, the CEO, with too much influence, too much charm. Ethan, who once complimented Madison's design work at a corporate function in a way Logan never appreciated. Ethan, who lingered a beat too long when Madison spoke. Ethan, who had everything Logan feared losing: power, respect, and a moral compass people admired. "No," Logan whispered, but the doubt dug in deeper. Had Madison reached out to Ethan? Had he helped her disappear? The possibility gnawed at him, lighting a cold fury in his chest. If Ethan had inserted himself into Logan's marriage, into Logan's life, it wouldn't just be betrayal, it would be war. And Logan had no idea he was already losing. By the time the sun fully climbed over Manhattan, Logan was no longer angry, he was obsessed. He tore through the apartment like a man hunting ghosts. Every drawer, every closet, every forgotten corner. But the more he searched for clues, the more he realized how much he'd missed while Madison was still here. He hadn't expected to find her journal on the top shelf of the bedroom closet, tucked behind a stack of blankets. The brown leather cover was soft, worn down, clearly touched every day. He hesitated before opening it, but curiosity overpowered guilt, something he rarely felt anyway. The handwriting on the first page hit him like a punch. "I don't recognize my husband anymore." He flipped to another entry. "He doesn't touch me. He doesn't look at me. I'm terrified to bring this child into a life where I feel invisible." The air went thin again, like someone had pressed a fist against his chest. He turned more pages, each one sharper than the last. "I think he's lying. I think he's seeing someone. I smelled perfume on him tonight. It wasn't mine. I cried in the shower so he wouldn't hear." Entry after entry, months of quiet suffering laid bare what he had refused to see. But one message stood out, circled 3 times. "Why is Sabrina calling him this late? The date was from 2 months ago. His stomach churned. She had known, or at least suspected, long before the night she left. And she wrote something even more damning a few pages later. I tried calling Ethan for advice. He didn't pick up, but his assistant said he'd return my message. Logan froze. Ethan. Again. The thought of Madison reaching out to another man, even out of despair, sent a hot, acidic jealousy coursing through him. He slammed the journal shut, pacing like a cornered animal. Ethan Marshall was wealthy, respected, and every inch the man Logan wished he could be. If Ethan wanted to turn Madison against him, it would be effortless. And Madison was vulnerable enough for someone like Ethan to swoop in, comfort her, protect her, maybe even love her. The idea twisted Logan's insides. He snatched his coat and stormed out of the apartment. He needed answers, now. And the first place he would check, the only place Madison might return to, was her old workspace in Midtown. But as he reached the elevator, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop looking for her. No name, no signature, just 3 words. His breath stalled. Someone was helping Madison, and now they were threatening him. He stared at the message, rage simmering under his skin. Whoever sent it had made a mistake. They thought fear would stop him. They had no idea who he was. Logan's footsteps echoed through the marble lobby of the Midtown design firm where Madison used to work. He expected to see her curled over her MacBook, sketching floor plans the way she always did, headphones in, lost in her own world. Instead, the receptionist looked up with startled eyes when he approached. "Is Madison here?" he asked, breath clipped, impatience seeping through every word. The receptionist shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Reed, she resigned 3 days ago." Logan's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. "That's impossible," she would have told me. The young woman hesitated, then added, "She said she needed distance, and that she was relocating for health reasons." Health reasons. The phrase sliced through him. Madison was 5 months pregnant and she left the city, alone. He felt a flash of panic, but buried it quickly under anger. "Where did she go?" "I'm sorry, sir," she didn't say. He knew the receptionist wasn't lying. Madison kept her world very small. She avoided drama, avoided gossip, the kind of woman who slipped in quietly and did her work without demanding attention. And now she was gone, completely off-grid. Logan turned away abruptly, pushing through the glass doors onto the busy Manhattan sidewalk. The noise of the city honking taxis, sirens, the constant churn of crowds felt louder than usual, pressing in on him like an accusation. She resigned before she left him. She was planning her escape. He replayed every detail from the apartment. The missing clothes, the missing vitamins, the missing sonogram. Everything pointed to one truth. Madison didn't run impulsively. She prepared. Someone helped her prepare. His thoughts snapped to the unknown text message he received earlier. Stop looking for her. A warning, a threat, a promise. He scanned the crowd instinctively, ridiculous as it was. New York had millions of people, but paranoia clung to him. Every face looked suspicious. Every passing glance felt intentional. Then, as he stepped toward the curb, his phone buzzed again. Another unknown message. You only made things worse for her. Walk away. He froze. The words made his skin crawl. Someone was watching him. He glanced up at the surrounding buildings, glass towers, reflecting the morning sun. Any of those windows could hide eyes trained on him. A camera, a witness, a threat. His pulse thundered. He typed back furiously. Who are you? 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Appeared again, vanished. No answer. But the silence said everything. This wasn't random. This wasn't someone meddling. Someone powerful enough, connected enough, was shielding Madison. And Logan realized something chilling. He wasn't the hunter anymore. He was the prey. By the afternoon, every step Logan took felt heavier. His suit, once a symbol of control and power, now clung to him like a reminder of everything slipping away. He returned to the apartment, hoping irrationally that Madison would be there, sitting on the couch with a warm blanket over her legs, waiting to talk things through like she always did. But hope died the moment he opened the door. Silence again. Too loud. Too clear. He slammed the door hard enough for the echo to rattle across the empty hallway. His chest tightened as he walked toward the living room. The curtains were half drawn, sunlight cutting through the room in long, harsh lines. The air smelled faintly like Madison's lotion, vanilla, and sandalwood, the faint trace of her existence. And that scent broke something inside him. He wasn't supposed to miss her. He wasn't supposed to feel this way. Yet now, every breath felt like it scraped against his ribs. He crushed his hand into his hair and sank into the leather sofa, elbows on his knees, fighting the pressure building behind his eyes. Madison never raised her voice, never argued, never accused him of the things she suspected. She swallowed her pain until it became part of her quiet routine. And he mistook that silence for loyalty. He mistook it for permission. A tremor rippled through him. "Where are you?" he muttered into the empty room. "Madison, where the hell are you?" His phone buzzed. For a split second, he prayed it was her. But it wasn't. It was Sabrina. "Call me back, as soon as possible. We have a problem." He stared at the screen, disgust curling in his stomach. The last person he wanted to hear from. Just seeing her name felt like a stain on his conscience. He declined the call. 3 seconds later, she tried again. He let it ring. On the 5th attempt, he finally answered, if only to shut her up. "What?" Her voice burst through the speaker, frantic and sharp. "Logan, something's happening at the company. People are talking. They said someone reported your financial discrepancies." His blood ran cold. "What discrepancies?" She hesitated. "The offshore accounts, the shifted numbers. Someone sent the board copies of your statements." His breath caught. Only 2 people knew about his offshore accounts. Him. And the person who threatened him earlier? A fresh wave of dread washed over him. Was Madison behind this? No, she didn't know the extent of his secrets. Could she? "Logan," Sabrina whispered, "someone is coming for you." He hung up before she could say more. His hands shook as he set the phone down. The apartment felt smaller, darker, suffocating. Someone wasn't just protecting Madison. Someone was dismantling him piece by piece. And for the first time in his life, he didn't know how to stop it. Madison sat in the passenger seat of a sleek black SUV, fingers trembling slightly as she held a warm Starbucks cup between her palms. She stared out the window at the passing city streets, streets she once walked every morning on her way to work, streets that now felt like memories she wasn't ready to revisit. Her breathing was shallow, but steady. She was safe. For the first time in months, she felt a fragile sense of safety. "Drink," the man beside her said gently. His voice was calm, smooth, deliberate. She nodded and lifted the cup. Ethan Marshall watched her with careful eyes, not intrusive, but protective. He kept both hands on the steering wheel, posture relaxed, as though chauffeuring a woman who hadn't fled her marriage overnight with nothing but a suitcase and a sonogram photo. "Are you in pain?" he asked, glancing at her stomach. Concern flickered in his tone. She shook her head. "Just overwhelmed." Ethan breathed slowly. "You did the right thing, Madison." Her throat tightened. "It doesn't feel like it. You left a man who was hurting you. And hurting your child." His jaw tightened, not in anger at her, but at everything she had silently endured. Madison looked down at her hands. "I don't want trouble. I just needed to disappear." Ethan exhaled a soft, ironic laugh. "Then you came to the wrong person. If you don't other..." She glanced up, startled, but he wasn't joking. Not completely. Ethan Marshall wasn't just powerful, he was connected. The kind of man who had eyes everywhere, from Wall Street boardrooms to luxury hotel lobbies to private security firms. If someone wanted someone found, protected, or erased, Ethan could make it happen with a single call. But he had chosen to protect her, and Logan knew it. Madison didn't know about the text messages. She didn't know Ethan had been watching Logan's spiral all morning. She didn't know he'd intercepted a conversation at Sterling and Holt, revealing the depth of Logan's financial crimes. But Ethan knew, and Ethan acted. He parked the car in front of a discreet residential building in Brooklyn, a place she'd never been, a place Logan would never think to look. A private property owned under an LLC with no traceable ties to Ethan's name. "Come on," he said softly. "You can rest here. Thank you for watching." Madison hesitated. "Why are you helping me?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened her door and offered his hand. His expression was steady, unreadable, but there was something gentle beneath the surface. "Because someone should have helped you a long time ago." Her breath hitched. He continued, voice lower now. "Because you deserve better than the life he gave you." Her chest tightened. And because, he added quietly, Logan Reed has hurt a lot of people. Protecting you is just the beginning. Madison's heart pounded. She suddenly understood something she hadn't dared consider. This wasn't just escape. This was the opening move of a much bigger game. And Ethan Marshall wasn't playing to lose. The apartment Ethan brought Madison to didn't look like a typical safe house. There were no metal doors, no security cameras glaring from corners, no cold, empty rooms that echoed with fear. Instead, the place was warm, sunlit, and surprisingly lived in. Soft beige couches, stacks of architecture magazines, a faint scent of cedar, and something clean, maybe laundry soap or aftershave. It felt like somewhere a person could breathe again. "This is yours, as long as you need it," Ethan said, placing her small suitcase by the door. Madison blinked, unsure. "This seems too much." He shook his head. "It's not. Trust me." And ho. She stepped farther inside, her hand instinctively resting over her stomach. The baby fluttered, a small reminder of the life she was trying desperately to protect. For a moment, her eyes watered. She'd spent weeks numbing herself to survive Logan's indifference, the lonely nights, the suspicion, the lies. And now, in this quiet space, the emotions she'd been burying cracked through. Ethan noticed. He didn't touch her. He didn't crowd her. He simply stood nearby with a presence that steadied the room. "You're safe here," he said softly. Madison took a shaky breath. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do next." "You don't have to know today," he replied. "Today you rest." She sank onto the couch, her fingers brushing a throw pillow embroidered with geometric patterns. She recognized the design instantly. It was from a boutique she loved downtown. Ethan must have remembered. The thought made her chest tighten again in a way she didn't understand. But before she could dwell on it, Ethan's phone vibrated. He stepped away to answer, voice lowering. Madison didn't mean to listen, but the words slipped through the quiet. "Yes, I saw the report. He's panicking." "No. He doesn't know it's her." A pause. "That stays between us." Her heart stopped. When Ethan returned, his expression was unreadable calm, but layered. "Everything okay?" she asked quietly. He nodded once. "Handled." Madison wasn't convinced. "Ethan, what aren't you telling me?" He hesitated, not from reluctance, but from calculation, as if timing mattered. "Logan is being investigated," he said finally. Her breath hitched. "Investigated? For what?" "Financial fraud, multiple counts." His tone stayed even, but there was gravity behind it. "And someone sent the board evidence." Madison's eyebrows knit together. "Someone?" Ethan studied her face carefully. "It wasn't you. But someone wants to protect you." A chill swept over her skin. "Who would do that for me?" she whispered. Ethan held her gaze steady, controlled, almost gentle. "Someone who's been watching him for a long time." Her pulse quickened. "And someone," he added quietly, "who is not afraid to destroy him." Madison swallowed hard. She suddenly understood something terrifying. Ethan wasn't just helping her. He was already fighting for her. And Logan Reed had just stepped into a war he wasn't prepared to survive. Madison woke up the next morning, wrapped in unfamiliar quiet. No tension in the walls, no footsteps pacing the hallway, no slammed doors. Just the soft hum of the building and the sight of sunlight spilling across the hardwood floor. For the first time in months, her chest didn't feel tight. She shifted slowly, one hand resting protectively on her stomach. "We're okay," she whispered to her baby. "I promise you, we're going to be okay." When she stepped out of the bedroom, she found a small breakfast spread on the kitchen counter, fresh fruit, toasted bread, a note written in Ethan's precise handwriting. "Eat. Your body needs strength for what's coming." She almost cried at the simple kindness. While she ate, she noticed her suitcase had been neatly unpacked. Her favorite sweater hung in the closet. Her prenatal vitamins sat beside a glass of water. Someone had taken care of her, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. After weeks of living on the edge of panic, the gentleness hit her harder than any cruelty Logan ever delivered. Just as she sat down with her MacBook Air, there was a soft knock on the door. Her heartbeat spiked. But when she opened it, Ethan stood there, sleeves rolled up, expression calm. "Morning," he said. "Feeling better?" She nodded, though exhaustion lingered around her eyes. "A little. Thanks for watching. I brought something for you." He lifted a slim folder. "This might help you rebuild. She frowned, confused, and opened it. Inside were architectural renderings hers. Sketches from 2 years ago when she briefly considered applying to a competitive interior design program but never followed through. Logan convinced her it was a waste of time. A hobby. Something she should forget. "How did you get these?" she whispered. "You showed them to me once," Ethan said. "Do you remember? At that charity event." She blinked. "I thought you forgot." "I don't forget brilliance." Her cheeks warmed. No one, not a single person, had ever spoken about her work like that. Ethan continued, "I have a project I want you on. A real one. Paid. High profile. You'd be a design consultant." Madison's breath caught. "Ethan, I can't. I'm pregnant. I'm dealing with." "You're talented," he interrupted softly. "Pregnancy doesn't erase that. Logan doesn't erase that. Nothing erases that." Tears pricked her eyes. Ethan stepped back slightly, not wanting to pressure her, but his voice remained earnest. "I'm offering you a beginning. Not because you're broken, Madison, but because you're capable." Madison looked down at the renderings, the potential of a future she'd given up on flickering to life again. For the first time since leaving Logan, she felt something powerful stir inside her. Not fear, not uncertainty, but possibility. She set a hand over her belly. "We're going to build our life back," she whispered softly. And somewhere deep down, she knew this wasn't just a comeback. It was the start of her becoming someone Logan could never control again. Someone unstoppable. Logan Reed wasn't a man who panicked. At least, he never thought he was. But by the time he stormed into his office at Sterling and Holt, panic had already crawled its way through his bloodstream. His staff stepped aside as he passed, their whispers following him like shadows. He slammed his office door shut and locked it. The moment he turned around, the truth hit him like a hammer. His desk was different. Files that were once neatly stacked were now scattered. A drawer he always kept locked hung slightly open. Someone had been here. He rushed to the drawer and yanked it open completely. Empty. The external hard drive he always kept hidden, the one containing 5 years of cooked numbers, offshore account trails, and falsified reports, was gone. His heart crashed into his throat. No, 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 no. He tore through the other drawers, desperate, sweating, as if he could will the hard drive back into existence. Papers flew across the room. A framed photo of him and Madison hit the floor with a crack, but nothing mattered. The evidence he'd spent years building his career on, the evidence that could bury him, was gone. Someone had taken it. Someone who knew where to look. Someone who knew what it meant. His phone rang. He didn't recognize the number, but answered anyway. "Logan Reed?" a man's voice asked. "Yes. Who is this?" "This is Daniel Brooks from Corporate Compliance. We need you in Conference Room B immediately." His throat tightened. "What for?" A pause. Too long. Too careful. "You'll want to see for yourself." The call ended. Logan dropped the phone onto the desk, staring at it as if it had betrayed him. His mind spun wildly. Who would do this? Not Madison. She didn't even understand financial reports. Not Sabrina. She was too self-interested and too sloppy to pull something like this off. But Ethan. Ethan Marshall had the resources, the access, the connections, and the motive. If Ethan had helped Madison escape, if Ethan had discovered Logan's fraud, if Ethan had sent the board the evidence, then Logan wasn't just losing his marriage. He was losing his career, his reputation, his future. He forced himself to breathe and straightened his tie in the mirror. He looked pale, shaken, nothing like the confident CFO he pretended to be. But he had no choice. He couldn't show weakness now. He unlocked the door and walked toward the conference room. Each step echoed louder than the last. Employees who once smiled at him now avoided his eyes. He pushed open the conference room door. Inside, the entire board sat waiting. A manila folder lay at the center of the table, thick, full, damning. Logan's stomach twisted violently. Someone had declared war on him. And judging by the silent, cold stares fixed on him, he was already losing. The room was too quiet, too still, too coordinated for this to be anything less than a planned ambush. Logan stepped inside, forcing his expression into something neutral. But his palms were already sweating, and his heartbeat drummed loud enough to drown out every rational thought. The board members sat stiffly in their leather chairs, faces stone cold. At the head of the table was Chairman Whitaker, stern, humorless, a man who did not call meetings lightly. "Mr. Reed," Whitaker said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade, "please sit. If you doesn't too highs." Logan obeyed, lowering himself into the only empty seat. His throat felt raw, dry. He could sense the hostility, the discomfort, the anticipation in the air. Everyone knew something he didn't, or rather something he had hoped no one ever would. Whitaker opened the manila folder. "We received an anonymous packet this morning." Anonymous. Of course it was. Whitaker continued, sliding several sheets across the table toward Logan. Bank statements. Transfers to offshore accounts. Altered quarterly reports. Unauthorized bonuses. Logan's stomach dropped so hard he felt sick. "These documents," Whitaker said, "indicate years of deliberate manipulation." Logan tried to steady his voice. "This is fabricated. Someone is setting me up." Whitaker's eyebrows lifted. "Is that your official statement?" Logan hesitated. Too long, too visible. A woman from the board leaned forward. "The documents match internal records we cross-checked minutes ago. Whoever sent this had access to precise data. Access that only an executive-level employee would possess," another added. Logan's mouth went dry. He finally forced out, "I want to speak with legal." "You will," Whitaker said, "after we finish." The next page was pushed toward him. A photocopy of his signature. On a transfer he never wanted anyone to see. His pulse spiked. "Where did you get this?" Whitaker didn't blink. "Same anonymous source." "I am." A cold sweat trickled down Logan's spine. He could feel the walls closing in. His career, the thing he had sacrificed everything for, was slipping through his fingers. A man at the far end of the table spoke quietly. 2 hours ago, Sterling and Holt received an inquiry from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Logan's vision blurred. "The FBI." "Why?" he croaked. "For you, Mr. Reed." The board member tapped the folder. "Financial crimes. Tax evasion. Possible embezzlement. 2,000 on it." His body went numb. Whitaker closed the folder with finality. "Effective immediately, you are suspended pending investigation. Security will escort you to gather your belongings." The room spun. Logan gripped the table to stay upright. This wasn't a warning. This wasn't a scare tactic. This was a dismantling. And someone had orchestrated it perfectly. As he stood on shaking legs, security approached him from behind. 2 officers, professional, expressionless. The humiliation hit him like fire. He scanned the faces of the board, desperate for any sign of mercy. But all he saw was relief. And then one horrifying thought pierced through his panic. If someone could destroy his career this easily, what else could they take? Madison tried to sleep that night, but her body wouldn't let her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Logan shouting, Logan denying, Logan gaslighting her into believing her own loneliness was somehow her fault. Hours passed in silence, the Brooklyn apartment dark, except for a sliver of city light sneaking through the blinds. She lay still, one hand over her stomach, feeling a dull ache she couldn't ignore anymore. At around 3 a.m., she sat up abruptly. A sharp pain shot through her lower abdomen, stealing her breath. Panic rose in her throat. This wasn't normal. She pressed a hand against the wall to steady herself, sweat forming at her temples. "Not now," she whispered. "Please, not now." Asphyxiation. Her vision wavered. She reached for her phone on the nightstand, but her fingers fumbled, knocking it to the floor. The sound echoed through the quiet apartment. She tried again, crouching slowly, but another pain stabbed through her sharper this time. Tears blurred her eyes. "Ethan," she whispered, even though he was still asleep in the guest room down the hall. She forced herself up, gripping the dresser for balance. Every step felt like her body was tearing open from the inside. She finally managed to push the door open. "Ethan." Her voice cracked. "Help." His door opened instantly, as if he'd been awake the entire night. He crossed the hallway in 2 long strides and caught her just before her knees gave out. "What's happening?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. I don't know," she gasped. "It hurts. Something's wrong." He didn't waste another second. He lifted her gently into his arms, the way someone lifts something fragile and irreplaceable, and carried her toward the elevator. "Stay with me, Madison," he said firmly. "Look at me. Breathe." She squeezed his hand, fighting the darkness, pressing into the edges of her vision. "Don't let me lose my baby. You won't, Ethan said, determination sharp in his voice. I swear to you, you won't. The SUV ride to Mount Sinai Hospital blurred together, streetlights streaking through windows. Her soft, broken breaths, Ethan's palms steady against her back. He held her the entire way, whispering things she couldn't fully hear but somehow felt. At the emergency entrance, medical staff rushed toward them. Ethan stayed at her side until the doors swung shut and the nurses guided him back. He stood there, fists clenched, chest heaving. He wasn't afraid of Logan, or the boardrooms, or the financial war unfolding. But this, Madison, hurting, was the first thing that truly terrified him. He wouldn't let anything happen to her. Or the baby. Not now. Not ever. Ethan spent the next 3 hours pacing the cold hospital hallway, wearing grooves into the sterile white floor. Every passing nurse, every distant beeping monitor, every muffled cry from another room twisted deeper into his nerves. He'd handled boardroom battles, billion-dollar negotiations, hostile takeovers, but nothing compared to the fear gripping him now. Because none of those things involved Madison. When the doctor finally emerged, Ethan stood so quickly, the chair behind him scraped the wall. She's stable, the doctor said. She experienced severe stress-induced contractions. The baby's heartbeat dropped for a moment, but everything is steady now. Ethan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. She needs rest. And I mean real rest, the doctor continued. You can see her, but don't let anything upset her. She's emotionally vulnerable, and her condition will worsen if she's put through more distress. Distress. The doctor didn't know how layered that word really was. When Ethan stepped into Madison's room, she looked impossibly small under the hospital blankets. Her face was pale, lips slightly parted, hair messy against the pillow. He approached softly, pulling the chair closer. Her eyes fluttered open. You stayed. Of course I stayed, he whispered. Madison swallowed, her voice trembling. Is the baby? He's okay, Ethan said immediately. You both are. Tears filled her eyes. She covered her mouth with one hand, shaking. Ethan reached out instinctively, placing a steady hand on her forearm not to control her, but to anchor her. You scared me, he admitted, voice low. You really scared me. I didn't want to call Logan, she whispered. I didn't want him to know. I didn't want him to use this against me. Ethan leaned in, his gaze steady. He won't touch you. He won't touch your child. Not while I'm here. He didn't say it like a threat. He said it like a vow. Madison wiped her eyes, her breaths uneven. Ethan, I don't want you dragged into this. You've already done too much. Too much? He almost laughed. Madison, I haven't done nearly enough. Her lips parted slightly, startled. Before she could respond, Ethan continued, voice lower, sharper. Logan's suspension became public this afternoon. The board leaked it. Investors are panicking. Sabrina has already distanced herself, and the investigation is only beginning. Madison's breath caught. Ethan, what's going to happen to him? What he built on lies, Ethan said quietly, is finally collapsing. Madison stared at the ceiling, tears slipping down her temples, not sorrow, but something closer to release. Relief. Closure. Then Ethan added, more gently, and when the dust settles, you aren't going back to him. You're going forward. With protection, with dignity. He hesitated. With choice. Madison closed her eyes, overwhelmed. For the first time in years, someone was fighting for her without wanting anything in return. And somewhere deep inside, hope, small, fragile, but real, began to grow. 2 weeks after Madison's health scare, she stepped out of Ethan's car in front of a towering glass building overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Sunlight hit the mirrored surface, scattering gold across the sidewalk. Madison stood still for a moment, hand resting gently on her growing stomach, taking in the sight. Ethan watched her closely. You sure you're ready? She nodded, though a trace of fear lingered behind her eyes. If I don't start now, I'll never be ready. But Efor, he gave her a small, reassuring smile. Then today is the day you begin again. Inside the lobby of Marshall Development, everything gleamed, polished marble floors, modern art installations, soft lighting that made even the air feel expensive. It was the kind of place she once thought was reserved for people stronger, louder, more confident than her. Now, she walked through it with quiet determination. Ethan led her to the design floor, where a team waited: architects, project managers, interns. all of them turning with polite curiosity as she entered. Madison suddenly felt the urge to shrink back, but Ethan stepped slightly closer, giving her just enough courage to stand taller. "Everyone," he said, "this is Madison Lee. She's joining us as a consultant for the Riverside Luxury Project." Whispers rippled through the room, curiosity, admiration, even a hint of recognition. Someone had clearly seen her previous work. One of the senior designers approached her, offering a hand. "I saw your concept sketches from the Pacific Light Hotel," he said. "Didn't know you were behind that." Madison's lips parted. Logan once told her that project didn't matter, that the team leader got all the credit. But here, someone knew her contribution. Someone appreciated it. Her heartbeat fluttered. The rest of the meeting moved quickly. Floor plans, timelines, preliminary design ideas. Madison took notes, asked questions, even offered suggestions. And each time, the team listened. Really listened. By the end of the session, a small spark of pride lit inside her. When the room finally cleared, Ethan walked over, hands in his pockets. "You were incredible." She let out a shaky laugh. "I was terrified." "Good," he said. "It means you care." Her smile softened, eyes warm. "Thank you, Ethan, for all of this." He hesitated, gaze lingering on her a heartbeat too long. "You don't owe me thanks. I'm just giving you space to be who you always were." She swallowed hard, emotion catching in her throat. They stepped into the hallway, and Madison paused before the panoramic window overlooking Central Park. The sky stretched wide, open, full of possibility. For the first time in years, she felt like the city wasn't suffocating her. It was welcoming her back. But far across town, in a cramped office filled with chaos and accusations, Logan Reed was watching news alerts that spelled the beginning of his downfall. Madison didn't know it yet, but her return to Manhattan wasn't just a comeback. It was the beginning of his end. The moment Logan returned to his penthouse that evening, he knew Sabrina was inside. Her perfume, sharp, sugary, expensive, hung in the air like a poison he could no longer ignore. She appeared from the kitchen, holding a glass of white wine, leaning casually against the marble counter as if she owned the place. "You're home late," she purred. "Rough day at work?" Logan shot her a glare that could have cracked glass. "You need to leave." Sabrina lifted an eyebrow. "Excuse me? I don't have time for your games," he snapped. "Everything is falling apart. I'm being investigated. The board suspended me. And you." "Oh, sweetie," she interrupted, stepping closer. "You think this is about me?" There was something different in her tone, colder, sharper, calculated. She wasn't the same Sabrina who clung to him at the Plaza Hotel. This Sabrina was dangerous. And she was enjoying herself. "I warned you," she said, swirling her wine. "I told you someone was watching you, but you were too arrogant to listen." Logan clenched his fists. "What do you know?" Sabrina smirked. "More than you think. Experi." She set her glass down and pulled her phone from her purse. Logan's chest tightened as she tapped the screen and held it up for him. A photo filled the display. Madison, leaving a clinic, escorted by Ethan Marshall. "What the hell is this?" Logan barked. Sabrina shrugged. "Proof. She's not alone. She hasn't been alone for a long time." A cold fury ignited in Logan's gut. "Are you telling me Madison and Ethan?" "Oh, please," Sabrina scoffed. "Don't pretend you suddenly care who she's with. You didn't care when she was crying herself to sleep, did you?" Her words sliced him open. "Look," she continued, "I'll be honest with you. I didn't plan to get dragged into your meltdown. I thought this would be fun. But when the FBI started poking around, I realized being close to you is hazardous." She zipped up her purse. "So I'm jumping ship, and I'm taking my own deal." "What deal?" Logan growled. Sabrina paused at the door, turning back with a wicked, satisfied smile. "Logan, darling, I'm the one who leaked your documents." His blood ran ice cold. "You what?" "I sent everything to the board," she said smoothly. "And the FBI. And a few reporters. Turns out, men who cheat on their pregnant wives are predictable. I knew you'd implode sooner or later. I just accelerated the process." "This stallery." Logan lunged toward her, but she stepped back, laughing. "Touch me," she warned, "and the next thing I leak will finish you completely." She slipped into the elevator, the doors gliding shut with a soft chime. For a long moment, Logan couldn't move. Sabrina. The woman he destroyed his marriage for. The woman he trusted with secrets Madison never knew. She had been playing him from the beginning. And now, with his career, reputation, and freedom slipping through his hands, Logan finally understood the truth. He hadn't lost Madison. He had thrown her away for someone who had just buried him alive. The contraction hit harder than the first time, sharp, sudden, knocking the air from Madison's lungs. She curled forward instinctively, gripping the hospital bed rails as a nurse rushed toward her. "Breathe, Madison. Deep breaths. You're okay." But she wasn't okay. Her body trembled. Sweat dotted her forehead. Every muscle felt stretched beyond its limit. She knew pregnancy came with risks, but she never imagined she'd face labor this early, alone except for a man who wasn't the father of her child, yet somehow felt more present than the husband she had lived with for years. Another contraction ripped through her. She choked back a cry. Ethan appeared in the doorway at the same moment, his expression turning to pure fear when he saw her doubled over. "What's happening?" he demanded, stepping forward. "She's going into preterm labor," the nurse replied swiftly. "We're trying to slow it down, but her body's under extreme stress." Madison squeezed her eyes shut, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Ethan, I can't. I'm scared." He moved to her side instantly, grabbing her hand as if grounding her to the earth. "Look at me. You're not alone. I'm right here." Her grip tightened around his fingers. For months, she had been shrinking emotionally, physically under Logan's neglect. But here, with pain racking her body, she realized she wasn't shrinking anymore. She was fighting. The doctor entered, voice calm but firm. "Madison, your baby's in distress. We need to prepare for the possibility of delivering tonight." Her blood ran cold. "But it's too early. We'll do everything to manage it," the doctor reassured. "But we need your consent to proceed if it becomes necessary." "If experience." Madison's breath faltered. She looked at Ethan, confused, terrified, desperate for something solid. "Madison," he said softly, "trust them. Trust yourself. You've made it this far." She nodded weakly. As nurses adjusted monitors, the doctor stepped out to prepare a surgical team. For a brief, fragile moment, the room quieted, just Madison's shaking breaths and Ethan's steady presence beside her. "I'm sorry," she whispered suddenly. Ethan frowned. "For what?" "For dragging you into my mess. For putting you through this. You shouldn't be here." He shook his head. "Madison, don't say that. I'm here because I want to be." Her eyes filled again. "You don't owe me anything." He leaned in, brushing her damp hair from her forehead with a gentleness that made her throat close. "I don't stay because I owe you. I stay because you matter." She broke then quietly, painfully, because no one had said words like that to her in years. Before she could respond, her body tensed again. Another contraction, stronger. Her breath hitched. Machines beeped faster. The nurse rushed back in. Heart rate dropping. Ethan moved closer, voice steady even as fear flashed behind his eyes. "Madison, stay with me. Keep breathing, I've got you." And as the world blurred into lights and pain and hurried footsteps, Madison held onto the only truth she had left. She wasn't fighting for her child alone. Not anymore. Logan had hit rock bottom before, but nothing compared to the silence of his penthouse after Sabrina's betrayal. He'd paced for hours, replaying every mistake, every lie, every warning sign he ignored. Rage pulsed under his skin, but beneath it was something far more primitive. Fear. Fear of losing everything. Fear of being alone. Fear of facing consequences he thought he was too smart to ever face. But there was one thing he still believed he had a right to. His child. Madison may have left him. She may have run to Ethan. She may have turned his life inside out, but the baby was still his family, his bloodline, his last shred of control. So when he finally learned through a panicked call from one of Madison's old coworkers that she had been rushed to the hospital, Logan didn't think how. He drove. Fast. Dangerously fast. By the time he burst through the doors of Mount Sinai Hospital, his breath was shallow and his hair disheveled, nothing like the polished CFO who once strutted through Manhattan as if he owned it. He scanned the lobby with wild eyes. "I'm looking for Madison Reed," he barked at the first nurse he saw. "She's pregnant. She was brought in earlier." The nurse stiffened. "Sir, only approved visitors." "I'm her husband," he cut in sharply. Another nurse approached, whispering something low enough that Logan couldn't hear. The first nurse's expression tightened. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reed," she said, her tone suddenly guarded. You're not on the visitor list. Logan blinked, stunned. What do you mean I'm not on the list? She's my wife. Before the nurse could respond, a voice echoed from behind him. She requested one person. Logan spun around. Ethan stood there, calm, collected, in control. He wore no suit jacket, sleeves rolled to the elbow, but he seemed taller, like the entire hospital took a breath when he appeared. Where is she? Logan demanded. Not your concern, Ethan replied, voice low but razor sharp. Logan's fists curled. She's carrying my child. She's carrying a child you neglected, Ethan shot back. A child she nearly lost because of the stress you caused. Logan's face drained of color. Ethan stepped closer, not threatening, just impossibly steady. You don't get to barge in now, not after everything. Logan's rage cracked. Desperation poured out. Ethan, I just need to see her, please. I didn't know she was this bad. I didn't know she'd left because... He stopped himself, realizing the truth burned too much to say aloud. Because he made her leave. Ethan didn't soften. Not even slightly. She doesn't want to see you. And she has the right to peace. You can't keep my wife from me, Logan roared. Ethan's eyes darkened. She's not your wife anymore. Silence cut through the hallway. And Logan finally understood. He didn't just lose his marriage. He lost the right to be part of her story. A story now being rewritten without him. 3 weeks later, Manhattan dressed itself in gold. The annual Sterling and Holt Charity Gala, the event Logan, once dominated with confidence and charm, now prepared to unfold without him. Investors, executives, and high society donors filled the grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton, champagne glasses reflecting glittering chandeliers overhead. Soft jazz floated through the air. Women in floor-length gowns sparkled beneath the lights. Men in tailored tuxedos whispered about scandals, stocks, and the latest fall from grace. And they all knew the name on their lips. Logan Reed. He had become Manhattan's favorite cautionary tale. Outside the ballroom, a sleek black car pulled up. The valet opened the door, and Madison stepped out slowly, her hand resting on her baby bump. She wore a simple ivory dress, no sequins, no diamonds, but the room seemed to shift when she walked in. Strength radiated from her in a way no designer gown could fabricate. Ethan was beside her. Black tuxedo. Controlled aura. Eyes sharp. He didn't walk in front of her. He didn't walk behind her. He walked with her. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like someone's shadow. Heads turned instantly. Is that Madison Reed? I thought she left the city. Who's the man with her? Oh my God, is that Ethan Marshall? Whispers surged like a current. Madison felt her breath tighten. Ethan leaned closer. If you feel overwhelmed, we can leave. She shook her head. No. I need to be here. This was the night she reclaimed her narrative. Halfway across the ballroom, the room's energy shifted again, this time with discomfort. Logan had arrived. Not invited, not welcomed, but desperate enough to ignore both. He looked different now, pale, thinner, eyes hollow from weeks of investigations and public humiliation. Conversations stilled, people stepped aside as if he carried something contagious. His gaze locked on Madison. Her breath caught, not in fear this time, just exhaustion at the ghost of who he once was. He moved toward her, chest rising and falling in short bursts. Madison, please, I need to talk to you. Aspiration. Ethan stepped between them instantly, posture unshakable. You don't get to approach her. This is my wife, Logan snapped. Madison's voice cut through with quiet finality. I'm not your wife anymore. The ballroom froze. Logan's face crumpled, but before he could speak, microphones clicked on. Chairman Whitaker stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, before we begin, we must address the criminal findings regarding former CFO Logan Reed. A collective gasp. Security moved toward Logan. He backed away, humiliation flooding his face, eyes darting between Madison and Ethan. Whitaker continued, we thank Madison Lay for her cooperation and the documents she unknowingly helped us recover. Logan spun toward her, betrayal slicing him open. You gave them? Madison stepped forward, voice steady. I didn't leak your files, Logan, but I'm not sorry someone finally did. Security placed a hand on Logan's shoulder. He didn't fight. He just stared at Madison with a realization that broke him completely. She wasn't afraid of him anymore. And Manhattan wasn't his kingdom to rule. Not tonight. Not ever again. Logan had always imagined himself untouchable, a man too powerful, too respected, too indispensable to ever fall from grace. But as security escorted him out of the ballroom, humiliation dripping from him like oil, he finally understood the truth. He wasn't untouchable. He was disposable. And Madison watched him go with a stillness that wasn't cruel. It was closure, the kind she had waited years for. As the ballroom doors closed behind him, a wave of whispers swept through the crowd. Is that really it for him? Fraud? Embezzlement? Poor Madison. But she looks incredible tonight. She's better off without him. For once, the story wasn't twisted to make her the villain. For once, the world saw the truth. Ethan gently touched her elbow. You okay? She exhaled slowly, shoulders relaxing. For the first time, yes. But the night wasn't finished. Chairman Whitaker returned to the microphone. And now, he announced, a special acknowledgement. Our Riverside project has exceeded expectations, and we would like to recognize the consultant responsible for the design transformation. Madison blinked, confused, until she heard her name. Madison Lay. The audience erupted into applause. Real applause, genuine, admiring. She felt her throat tighten as Ethan guided her toward the stage. Go, he whispered. You earned this. She stepped into the lights, soft, golden, warm, the kind of light she used to dream of standing under, the kind of light she once believed she didn't deserve. Whitaker shook her hand. Your vision is exceptional, Miss Lee. We're lucky to have you. Madison smiled, small at first, then fuller as the applause continued. The woman who once hid behind her husband was now being applauded without him. Across the room, Sabrina watched with narrowed eyes, clutching a champagne glass like it owed her something. She approached as Madison stepped off the stage, her heels clicking like tiny threats. Well, Sabrina said, forcing a smile, I guess congratulations are in order. Madison didn't flinch. You're leaving the city soon, I heard. Sabrina stiffened. Madison continued softly, smart choice. Manhattan remembers everything. Before Sabrina could respond, Ethan stepped beside Madison, casual but unmistakably protective. Sabrina's expression shifted, resentment, guilt, envy, all twisting at once. You two look cozy, Sabrina sneered. Madison met her gaze calmly. We're not hiding. That's the difference. Sabrina's jaw clenched. She turned sharply and walked away, her figure swallowed by the crowd, no longer the seductress in control, but a woman who had burned her last bridge. Madison exhaled deeply. Ethan looked at her, pride shining in his eyes. You handled that flawlessly. I just spoke the truth, she said softly. And that, Ethan replied, is exactly why you're winning. Madison felt something inside her shift. Something final. Something freeing. Tonight, Logan lost everything. Tonight, Sabrina faded into irrelevance. And tonight, Madison stepped fully into the life that had always belonged to her. Spring settled over New York like a soft promise, warm breezes weaving through budding trees, sunlight slipping between skyscrapers, the city humming with new beginnings. Madison stood on the rooftop terrace of the Riverside project, the very project she helped bring to life, watching the Hudson River shimmer in the late afternoon glow. Her baby boy slept peacefully in her arms, small fingers curled against her chest. She kissed the top of his tiny head. We made it, she whispered. Everything felt different now, not perfect, not easy, but peaceful. Something she had never experienced in her old life. Behind her, footsteps approached, slow, familiar. She didn't turn immediately, she didn't need to. Ethan stepped beside her, coat unbuttoned, sleeves rolled back, the wind teasing strands of his hair. He's beautiful, he said softly. Madison smiled. He looks like my dad. Then he's lucky, Ethan replied. For a while, they simply stood there, watching the sun melt into the horizon. No rush, no fear, no shadows from the past clawing at her heels. Just presence, quiet and steady. Ethan finally spoke again, voice gentle. You know, you've built something remarkable, not just here, he nodded toward the skyline, but in your life. Madison exhaled slowly. I didn't do it alone. No, Ethan agreed, but you were the one who chose to stand back up. A gust of wind brushed past them. Madison tucked the blanket around her son, then looked up at Ethan with something soft and steady in her eyes. I used to think strength meant staying, she whispered. Now I know strength was leaving. "And you left with grace," he said. "That's rare." Madison swallowed, emotion rising. "Ethan, everything you've done helping me, protecting me, fighting for me, I don't know how to repay that." He shook his head. "You don't owe me anything." But then, his voice softened. "Still, I'd like to ask you something." Her heart fluttered, not with fear this time, but with anticipation. Ethan reached into his coat pocket, not for a ring box, nothing showy, nothing grand. Just a simple silver band, elegant and understated. Something that matched the woman she had rediscovered. "I'm not asking you to rush," he said quietly. "I'm not asking you to forget what happened. I'm asking if, when you're ready, you'd let me be part of your life." And his? Wajasanastain. Madison felt tears prick her eyes. Not the tears of heartbreak. The tears of finally arriving somewhere safe. She placed her hand over his. "You already are," she whispered. Ethan's eyes softened in a way she had never seen. In that moment, surrounded by the city that once swallowed her whole, Madison realized something powerful. She didn't just survive. She won. Logan faced criminal charges. Sabrina disappeared from Manhattan's social circle. And Madison, once invisible in her own marriage, now stood in the light, loved, respected, and free. Ethan gently wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close as the sun dipped below the skyline. A new family. A new beginning. A new chapter. Not born from escape, but from choosing herself at last. So, that's how the story ends, my dear friends. And if you're still here with me right now, listening until the very last moment, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a quiet, honest way. Maybe you saw a part of yourself in Madison's courage, or maybe you recognized the lesson hidden beneath the pain. Life will break us sometimes, through betrayal, disappointment, or people we trusted too much. But the Stoics remind us, what stands in the way becomes the way. Pain isn't just something we survive, it becomes the doorway to who we're meant to become. Madison learned that leaving wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. And healing wasn't an accident, it was a choice. Remember, your worth isn't measured by who stays, but by who treats your heart with care. And sometimes, the most powerful victory is choosing yourself. If this story made you feel seen, even for a moment, don't hesitate to like the video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe so we can keep walking through these stories together. You're not alone here. This channel is your home too.